The conversation you are about to hear was recorded in 2020 during the height of the global pandemic. And now, Global Comedy Studios presents, Is This a Bad Time to Talk?
Hello, Reed Birney.
Hello.
Is this Reed Birney?
It is indeed.
Reed,
Ali.
Is this a bad time? Yes, is this a bad time to talk?
Why no?
That's the name of the show, Reed. Well, really, it's just a phone call right now, but it's called, Is This a Bad Time to Talk? Just to let you know, this phone call is being recorded and may be posted, just so you know that.
Yeah.
And
Are you gonna do any editing in case I go off on a tangent?
No, I don't know, Reedy. I'm so not tech savvy. I'm hoping I get this on audio, and I hope most of it comes out. It's an app on my phone called Tape-A-Call. And so I've been talking to friends who I just wanted to talk to during the virus. And right now it's Friday, April 24th, 2020, around 10 o'clock, Reed.
Yeah, that's right. You got that right.
At least you got the time and date out of it. Oh, what a wonderful laugh. Now, Reedy, are you cool with the fact that this podcast may be brought to you by Fresca? I've just been enjoying Fresca. I don't make any money off this, but I've been really enjoying Fresca. Lentils.
Fresca was my mother's favorite drink, so I'm all for it.
I don't believe
loves
coincidence.
Fresca. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Oh my God, that is beautiful. And also, the podcast is called AKA I'm Here to Listen. So during the conversation, you may be talking and you may not hear anything, and you may wonder if we've been cut off. We may have been, but also I'm here to listen.
You're here to listen. So I guess I'm here to talk.
Yes. And think of it like, therapy in a way. So to begin with, I am in an undisclosed location in New York City for both of our protection. But where am I finding you right now? Where are you in space and time if I had to beam me up Scotty you?
I'm in the Catskills.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where in the Catskills? This is your Catskill home?
This is our luxurious country home, where we escaped on the 16th of March, and it's my favorite place in the whole wide world. So, if it weren't the end of the world, I would be in bliss.
Yes.
Yeah.
And are you in your treehouse? I've seen pictures of your beautiful treehouse. Are you there?
I'm not in the treehouse right now. It's out there in the back, and ready for company. But I'm here with Connie and the children, and we have another friend here. We're quarantining a little bit. We brought a Fresh Air Fund kid up here, a friend of Connie and Gus's, who had been in her studio apartment for a month by herself and was starting to slip away. So we have had her up here for the last 2 weeks and have had a lovely time.
Bless you. Bless you. My God, what a good guy you are. Even to accept my phone call. A lot of people won't return my phone calls.
I understand that too, but I took a little pity on you, and here we are.
Thank you, because I do throw a lot of pity parties for myself. So if you want to bring something to my pity party, just ask. It'll be either Fresca or lentils.
Can't find lentils. Fresh out.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't find them anywhere.
In love with lentils all of a sudden, and yeast and bread flour. Yeah, everybody's suddenly a baker.
It's apocalyptic. You haven't been in New York since March. You have no idea of the state of affairs in the city.
I'm not coming back to New York until I can lick the sidewalk, and then I'll be back. Yeah. So.
That treehouse, I saw a picture of it. I can't believe someone's not sleeping in that every night.
Well, it may come to that. If anybody gets sick, that's where they're going. They'll be quarantined up there. But so far, so good. We're all breathing normally.
Reed,
watching lots of bad TV.
Yeah.
Holy
There's
moly.
There's a lot out there, Reed.
Wow. We
There's
spent
a lot out
20 minutes yesterday trying to find something to watch and couldn't find anything. And then we all just called it a night. And there are 4,000 things at any given moment that you could watch, and all of them look terrible.
Now, this is not my bit, and I don't know whose it is, but I've heard that there are some Netflix thumbnails that there are no shows behind them. They're just thinking that no one will click them. Now, again, that's
Yeah.
not mine. I heard it somewhere, but I liked it.
Well, I think that's probably always been true, but maybe now more so. Yeah.
But
You look at some of these things, you're like, what in the world is that show? I've never heard of it or anybody in it. There it is in 4K.
Bless him. I'm kind of amazed at the little moments in my life that led me to be talking to Reed Birney, Tony Award winner. I mean, it's pretty incredible from my perspective. From my perspective, yes.
All right. Okay. No, we had a lot of fun. That was one of the great summers of my life.
Oh, Steppenwolf, Homebody Cobble. I got lucky enough to be Reed Birney's, what do you call them? Dressing room mate.
Yes.
I mean, so many memories. I mean, when you had that big bowl of candy in the dressing room, and I was like, what's this all about? You were like, you'll find out. And next thing I know, everybody is stopping by our dressing room.
Yeah.
For a piece of candy.
Yeah. It's like, it's a lure. It's a lure. Works for every pedophile in the world. But
okay, all right. Okay, again.
We got them in. But that little bowl that you bought for me, the yellow bowl, is downstairs in the living room right now.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Warms my heart. I mean, but I had seen you, interestingly enough, at Steppenwolf in a play in one of their smaller stages where you were playing the father. Yes, the year before. And I was like, who is that guy? And I was watching you, trying to catch you acting, but I couldn't catch you acting. You know,
really? Wow.
Every time I watch you act, and I love watching you when you're kind enough to let me know when you're in something. I don't have to find out through Jeremy Byler, or a third party telling me Reed is in a play, and I'm like, well, I wish he would have told me, but I mean, I guess he doesn't have to anymore because his shows sell out. But I can never. It's always looks so deceivingly. You make it look so simple and easy. It's like, but is he what's he doing? He's not doing anything.
Yeah. Well,
amazing.
I take pride in that, and because I think I can't stand it when I watch shows and I see people acting all over the place. And look, I've been terrible in things too, but that's the goal is to have it be as real and as alive as possible. And it's really nothing more than just really good pretending. And it's the same, this is what I tell my students, it's the same exact thing you did in the sandbox when you were 5. It was really good pretending. And when you were in the sandbox, you never for a second thought you actually were the King of England or a pirate, but you were fully committed. You were operating at, your imagination was 110%. And if your sister jumped in the sandbox and said, there's a monster coming, you didn't say, give me 5 minutes to think about that. You just went with it. And you shifted gears. And it was alive and fun. And the problem is, I think that goes away for a lot of people. I mean, this is an incredibly presumptuous thing to say, but the longer I live and watch actors, I think a lot of actors don't actually understand what the job is. And they're operating out of some place trying to fill the unfillable hole or something. There's some craving for something. And so the job of tell me a story gets lost. And I believe very strongly in that, my job is to disappear, for Reed to disappear and let whoever the character is be fully alive on stage. And it's fun when you do that. You get to live out all these other things and learn about other things and other people's responses. There's that great line in Harold and Maude, and I can't remember what the cue was. He said something like, you seem to like people, to Maude. And she said, well, they're my species. And I think that's exactly right. As actors, we get to explore our species and examine why people do what they do, good and bad. And that's fun.
I'm here to listen.
You're here to listen.
Wow. AKA, this is a bad time to talk. When did you first know, when I was talking to Fred today, he was telling me about in kindergarten, he was in a play and, all of a sudden everybody else was nervous, but he wasn't. And he just stepped up and he did it. And at that point he knew he liked being on stage and playing make-believe and was not really self-conscious about it. At what point did you know, wow, I like doing this and want to do it?
Well, as I'm sure I've told you a million times, I was that freakish little kid too. I remember being about 5 and saying to a group of grown-ups, I remember looking up at it, they were all sort of circled around me and saying I wanted to be an actor, and they all laughed nervously and looked at one another with a little bit of terror in their eyes. And so I had my eye on it from the beginning. I seem to remember being at a movie somewhere around that time, and it clicked that, oh, this is something you can actually do. And I don't know why I got it in that moment. I think it was the 1962 remake of Thief of Baghdad, and with Steve Reeves, if you can believe that. And, it was a swashbuckling epic. And I remember thinking I could be an actor. And so I really geared my whole life towards it. And I imagine I'm the middle of 5 children. I imagine there was some early impulse to get attention and be applauded and that kind of stuff. I imagine. I don't really remember. But I did all the plays I could at school, and and then I would do freakish little puppet shows at home. Not unusual. We all did at some point, did the puppet shows. But I remember coming up with the puppet show and then going around the house and posting posters. Puppet show today, shows at 1:30 to 2:30. So that, continuous daily. So maybe siblings and parents came to the 1 o'clock show, but I went ahead with the 1:30 and the 2 and the 2:30 to nobody. So that, the show must go on, and you've committed to it, and you do it. I know it's all incredibly tragic now as I talk about it, but that's what I did.
I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, tragic. Are you kidding me? You are an actor's actor, and you've had a storied career. What are you talking about?
Well, Ali, that's really nice of you to say. I don't feel like it's particularly storied. I feel like the last 11, 12 years have been great. But as I'm famous for saying, I had about 35 years that were heartbreaking, full of despair, full of rejection, full of no money, people saying the most outrageously awful things to my face, in there rejecting me. So I am really happy that it's turning out well, and that the last chapter is good. I would much rather have late career success than be like many friends I started out with who had way more success when we were younger and now are struggling because they kind of used up their coupon. And I saved all my coupons and I'm using them now.
Was there someone in high school who championed you, a teacher or somebody who was like, you should do this, or someone in the drama department?
No. My 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Purcell, was the first grown-up who got me. And she was enormously encouraging in 5th grade. But I think I can say pretty securely that I've never had a champion. I've never had anybody who really stuck their neck out for me or, made things happen for me. And I have lots of movie star friends who think I'm terrific, but I notice forgot to do anything to help me along the way. And so, that's a source of sadness too, because you see the movies and you hear the stories about my friend so and so made a phone call and got me this in for this thing, and I never really did. So I can say pretty confidently that I am the poster boy for perseverance, but I also tried to leave 3 times, where it just got to be too much, and I just thought, oh well, nobody's buying what I'm selling. I'm a fool. If this were a relationship, everyone would say, you got to get out of this. This is bad for you. And I tried. And the last time I tried was as recently, it's not that recent anymore, but it was 1994. I was already middle-aged. And I went to a career counselor who had successfully rehabilitated several actor friends, and thought, oh, well, she's going to help me, and I'm going to end up having a wine store in some place. And I went to her for 3 months and did all the homework and all that stuff. And after 3 months, she came back and said, I got bad news. You're an actor. And I thought, well, yeah, that is kind of bad news. And do I get my money back? But I think she was right. I think I am an actor. And if you had said to me at 21 or 22 when I made my Broadway debut, just wait till you're 55, it's going to be fantastic, then I would have killed myself. I mean, to be 21 or 2 and like, wait till you're 55. Oh my God, who could do that? You would kill yourself.
Now, after high school, did you come right to New York? Was there college acting?
I went to Boston University into their School of Fine Arts for 2 years. I had been accepted at Juilliard, and I believe I would have been in that class with Christopher Reeve and Bill Hurt and all those guys, that fancy pants class. I think I would have been in that class. But I didn't go to Juilliard because I thought it was the hardest decision I think I've ever had to make. I thought 10 hours of acting a day would make me hate it. And I wanted some kind of college experience. I wanted to share a house with guys. And, even if I never went to a football game, I wanted there to be a football team and sort of have that experience. And after 2 years at BU, I felt like I did that. I shared a house with 5 guys, and, I had the thing. I had everything I thought I needed from college, and I wasn't loving the program. And so I moved to New York at 19. I was almost 20. And I went to Circle in the Square to satisfy my parents. They thought I needed some kind of schooling still or structure. It was totally an unaccredited school. It was a conservatory, so I wasn't going to get any kind of a degree. But I was in some kind of structure, which I think probably was a good idea for me. And I, after 3 months, I sent my picture and resume into a children's theater company through Backstage, and I got cast, and I got my equity card. So I dropped out of Circle after 3 months. By Christmas, I was gone. And I toured for 9 months with this children's theater company doing 2 really dreadful soft rock musicals, Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court and Swiss Family Robinson, set in America. So it was not Swiss in any way, shape, or form. And it was gruesome. There were 7 of us in an unair-conditioned station wagon, and we drove from Maine to Florida to New Orleans. The oldest member of the company was 40, and he was a Vietnam vet with serious PTSD. And I think full of rage that at 40 he was touring in a children's theater company. And it was a very motley crew. And I think we all didn't like each other very much, and the shows were terrible. And when I got back from that was the first time I tried to leave. I thought about leaving. And then within probably 6 or 8 months, I got cast in Gemini, which was going to be just 9 shows at Playwrights Horizons. It was the second show at the old Playwrights Horizons on 42nd Street. And it was going to be 9 shows. And at the very last performance, a producer named Jay Broad came to see the show because he had lost a play out at his theater in Huntington, Long Island, the Performing Arts Foundation, the PATH Playhouse. And he'd lost the play, and he came to see our play, and he picked us up and moved us out to Long Island. And we did that right away. We went right back into rehearsal and rewrote the play and fixed it up. And at the very last show of the PATH Playhouse run, Marshall Mason and Lanford Wilson came because they had lost a play at Circle Rep, a Julie Bavassa play. So they needed something. So they picked us up and moved us into Circle, where we suddenly were the talk of the town. And we played there a month. And then we moved right away to Broadway, to the Little Theater, which is now the Helen Hayes. And the play ran 4 years. And I did it for 2. So that was the thing that sort of got me established. It was such a big hit. It had an incredibly successful television commercial. It was the first play, not musical, to use a television commercial. And it made us a huge hit. And the television commercial is on YouTube. You can look it up. I was in it for 2 years, which was way too long. And my part was, the leading characteristic of my character was that he was pretty ordinary. And I was surrounded by incredibly flashy, crazy characters. And those people, actors, all were winning Obies and being whisked away to this, that, and the other thing. And I couldn't get another job. And it was very, very hard. The show, no one was paying any attention to the show, and it got very flabby and out of shape. None of us were experienced doing long runs. And since nobody was minding the store, a lot of egos sort of came forward, and this is my moment, and I'm going to elbow you out of the way, or I'm going to upstage you, or lots of stuff like that. So it ended up being very challenging. And then I left that to go do a play at the Public Theater, an adaptation of Bulgakov's The Master and Margarita with F. Murray Abraham. And it was Wally Shawn's first acting job, and a lot of people who have had wonderful careers. F. Murray hadn't done anything famous yet. I mean, he was a very busy working actor, but he hadn't won the Oscar or any of that stuff. And I thought that was going to be a fantastic job. I thought Andre Serban would, take me places as an actor I'd never been before. And he turns out he wasn't really a bit interested in the acting. He's Romanian, and it's very technical and very, we are merely colors in his palette. And I was terrible in that play, and the show wasn't very good. And it was brutal. It was another brutal, brutal job. And then I sort of miraculously, through my acting class, at 26, I got cast in Arthur Penn's movie Four Friends, written by Steve Tessich, who had won an Oscar for Breaking Away. And it was a fantastic job, a thrilling job. We filmed it in 1980 in Chicago. And I had a great part, and it was a wonderful group of people. And I'm still friends with all of them. And Lois Smith played my mother. And, it was Arthur Penn, and it was just great. But the movie, unfortunately, it was about the 60s. It followed a group of friends through the 60s, and it came out before anyone really was ready to look at the 60s. It was very early in that. You know, if it had waited another 10 years, it probably would have done a lot better. People still talk about how much they love that movie, but people also hated it. So that was frustrating. You know, it was a big flop. And then I sort of went into my period of decline. I was with ICM when Four Friends came out with Sam Cohn, who at that point was Woody Allen's agent and Arthur Penn's agent and Mike Nichols' agent and Meryl Streep's agent and Sigourney Weaver's agent, and everybody was with Sam. And I sort of gambled to go with Sam, and had the movie been a hit, that would have been the perfect place to be. But because it failed, Sam couldn't do what he was best at, which would have been fielding offers. But since I had no offers, I literally, the year after Four Friends opened, when it opened, every agent in America called me up and said, I want to work with you. And I said, well, I've just signed with Sam Cohn. And they said, oh, well, we can't really help you. I mean, that's great, but, you know, we can't compete with that. And so I literally, the year after Four Friends opened, went a year without working and without a single audition. And I kept calling Sam, and I said, should I be worried? No, not yet. And then finally, a year later, I woke up and I said, oh, I lost. I gambled and I lost. And I called some of these agents back to say, you know, it didn't work out with Sam. I'd love to talk to you. And pretty much all of them said, the moment has passed and good luck. So as a result, I ended up, you know, I left Sam and I was with a very bad agent in New York. And, you know, I sort of disappeared for 30 years. And I worked all the time, but I was doing, you know, little jobs off Broadway and off Broadway and really struggling. And, you know, you start to think, oh, I've really screwed this up. Those are the early days, Ali.
I'm here to listen.
Jabberjaw.
You said that you got Four Friends, which I love that movie. You say you got that through an acting class? Who were you studying with at the time, and how did that happen?
That was one of the great good bits of fortune in my early days in New York. When I came to New York, a fellow I knew not very well asked me if I would audition with him to get into this acting class that was sponsored by the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, who were the people that at that point did the Emmy Awards. I don't think they're called that anymore, but they had this acting class at ABC on, you know, at Lincoln Center there, that met once a week for free. It was crazy. It was free. And I auditioned with him, and I got in, and he didn't. And I didn't know anything about this class. I really had just gone along for the ride. But it was run at that point by a brilliant man named Tad Danielewski, who was a freedom fighter, Polish resistance fighter in World War II. And he'd come to New York, and he was very enigmatic and very elfin and a man of very few words, but he was really brilliant. And he left the acting class after about 2 years and was replaced by a man named Gene Lasco, who was from the Actors Studio. And he was Arthur Penn's sort of right-hand man. He had helped him produce The Miracle Worker and, you know, Little Big Man and Missouri Breaks. And, you know, he'd been on all those movies. But Sigourney Weaver was in the class and Mercedes Ruehl was in the class. And Sigourney had been auditioning for The Doctors, that soap opera. And Gene was the producer of the Doctors at that point. And he said, "You're very interesting. Where do you study?" And she told him about the workshop and said, we don't have a teacher right now. We had carried on for about a year without a teacher after Tad left. And Gene came and started teaching for free. And so when Four Friends started to happen in the spring of '80, he called some of us in from the workshop to audition. And that's how I got in it. He was incredibly instrumental. And I give Gene really credit for everything I know as an actor, and my real whatever technique I have, I got from Tad and Gene. And when I teach, I use really all the stuff that they taught me.
And were the classes essentially monologues and scenes, or was there, repetition or Meisner, or
no,
what were the classes composed of?
It wasn't Meisner. It was, if anything, it was sort of Actors Studio, but I think Gene sort of thought that the method needed a little more craft to it than just sense memory and all that kind of stuff. So I would say Gene's motto or whatever was tell the truth always, but in the most interesting way possible. So, for example, when we were filming Four Friends, the set designer came to me one day and said, I was a college kid in the show. He said, what do you want in your dorm room? And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, it's your dorm room. What do you want? I thought, oh, wow, that's so great. I said, well, I think I should have a hat collection. And then I said, I think I would like to be addicted to Coca-Cola, that there would be, bottles of Coca-Cola around. And I mentioned this to Gene the next day, and he said, pick something more interesting than Coca-Cola. So I picked Yoo-Hoo. And I showed up on the set, and they had all these fabulous Yoo-Hoo bottles. It took place in the 60s, so it was, they had all these antique Yoo-Hoo bottles that they had found, in overnight. It was thrilling. And there was another example I can give you of his brilliance was when we were starting to film. I was very lucky. It was my first movie in that I had a bunch of scenes in which I was present, but I didn't have to carry the weight of the scene. And they were all sort of clumped together in the filming schedule. And then I had a little tiny break, and I came back and I filmed all my big scenes at once. So I felt like I had this period of time where I can get used to the camera and, get comfortable, sort of find my way. And then when I come back, I'll be, ready to go with the big scenes. So we start filming, and I played a character named Louis Carnahan who was stricken with multiple sclerosis. The only reference to it in the movie was cut, so it really looks like I have the mysterious movie disease. But I had multiple sclerosis, and I had researched it very extensively, and was really sort of loving using all that research. But anyway, I sort of figured that he was sort of the Tiny Tim of the movie. He was this really beautiful sort of ray of hope and optimism in the midst of this very sad story. So we started filming, and I was, sort of playing against all the sadness. And Arthur came up to me one day and said, there's a superciliousness that's creeping into your performance that we need to be very careful of. And so I would really love for you to explore the darker side. Oh my God. Well, I went into a complete panic because I thought I'd filmed all these scenes already, and I was supercilious, and I was, you don't get to go back and reshoot stuff. And I was, screwing up the movie and screwing up this incredible opportunity. So the next day, we were filming a scene in which I had no lines, but it was this, I don't know if you remember in the movie, I brought my college roommate Danilo home to meet my family, and my dad is a complete douche. And at the dinner table, we're very rich. Danilo and my father sort of get into a fight. And Danilo challenges him. And so I was, during this dinner scene, exploring the darker side of Louis. And this went on for hours. And finally, Arthur came up to me and said, "Why are you so depressed? You should be enjoying all these wins that Danilo is scoring over your father." So I was, again, in a complete panic because I thought, he tells me I'm supercilious, and now he tells me I'm depressed, and I don't know what I should do. I'm really screwing up. So I went to Gene, who, of course, was my acting teacher, and he was producing the movie. And I said, he tells me I need to get dark, and then I'm dark, and I'm depressed. What do I do? And Gene said, yeah, when he says dark, he doesn't mean dark like depressed. He means dark like the god Mars is a dark god. You would never say Mars is a depressed god, but he's a dark god. And I knew instantly what he meant. It just sort of dropped into this awareness and this wisdom so that I could still sort of be upbeat, but with a knowingness. And that's all he said. It really was that simple. He just said that, and I got it. And maybe it's because we had worked together for a couple of years at that point. But, I thought that's great direction as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm truly here to listen, Reed. Wow. So Gemini is done. Four Friends is done. You're in this period in New York City. You're doing plays, you say, off-Broadway, Soho Playhouse and whatnot.
Yeah.
Eventually you end up at the Steppenwolf. How does that happen that all of a sudden, you're in Chicago? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in between there because Chicago was probably in your early 40s.
It was 2002. So yeah. I was, what was I, 48?
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible? Yeah, I was 48.
So between Four Friends and,
Four Friends, I was 26.
Yeah.
So that was 15 years, of no money. And I had, at one point in there, as you know, in 1985, in December of 85, I left New York and traveled around the world for a year. I moved to Paris for 5 months, and then I took off with a backpack because I was walking up Broadway one day in May of 85. Really, I felt like show business was killing me. I felt myself dying. I felt I couldn't be with people for 2 seconds without launching into a rant, and I was really out of control. I probably was having some kind of a nervous breakdown. I don't know. Anyhow, while I was walking up Broadway that day, a little voice said to me, as clearly as I'm talking to you right now, "Take a trip around the world." And my grandmother had died and left me some money. And I went home and said to the woman I was living with at the time, if nothing happens for me in 6 months, I'm taking off and I'm going to travel. And the point of the trip was to do all the things that I had always wanted to do, but I wouldn't let myself do because I was in this terrible relationship with show business. So, I wanted to move to Paris, and I wanted to go to Bali, and I wanted to take a safari in Africa and, go to Australia. And I did all those things. I was gone a year to the day. The relationship did not survive, but that's all right. And so that was in 85, 86. So then I have all the 90s. And I'm sure that trip was really in response to the failure of Four Friends. The thing that's so sort of cool about a movie is we made it in 80. It took a year for it to come out. It opened in December of 81. And then you sort of know that it's out there. It's at a movie theater somewhere, and you're walking around and you're like, well, maybe someone will go see Four Friends today and call me up. And then, so there's this weird delayed reaction to its failure. When a play fails, you know it the day after it opens and it closes, or you finish your run and and nobody comes and you know what it is. But when a movie fails, unless it's Heaven's Gate or something, you sort of get so disconnected to it. It takes a while to really grasp, or it did for me. So anyway, I bum around through the 90s doing crummy plays or good plays that nobody sees or they're out of town. And then how did I get theater district at I auditioned for it. I think I auditioned for it because Eric Rosen didn't know me and the playwright didn't know me, Richard Kramer. So I think I just auditioned for it. How else could I have gotten it? But because of Theater District, Frank Galati came to see it. It wasn't a Steppenwolf play, but it was at Steppenwolf upstairs. And Frank Galati came to see it, and I think called Martha Levy and said, I think Reed needs to be Milton in Homebody Cobble next year. And they offered it first to Tom Irwin because he was a Steppenwolf member, and he turned it down happily. And then it came to me, and that, that was sort of the beginning, because I met Tracy Letts through that. He was in it with us, of course, and he then put me in Bug a year later. And that didn't really change things so much. Tracy likes to think that changed things for me, but it didn't really change things. Stuff really didn't change for me until Blasted.
Until what now?
Blasted in 2008.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric Rosen and I are fraternity brothers, and I think I might have been his big brother in the fraternity.
Aha!
Yeah. Small world.
Yeah.
Small world.
But
that Steppenwolf experience, at least for me, because that was my first play, was just such a vivid, visceral, seminal summer of magic. And I think, a testament is that we're talking tonight. But it was, that was one of the times where, for me, I'm on stage and I'm like, oh my God, it's like a poker game where you're like, when you don't know who the sucker is at the table, then it's you. And, and I'm on stage with you and Tracy and Asif, and I'm like, oh my God, these are all very good. What am I doing here? But, you guys.
You were very good too.
You were very welcoming, thank you. But that, I guess, so that play at Steppenwolf then led to, going and doing it at BAM and then at the Mark Taper. But you're saying until this other play, that's when things started taking off, Blasted.
Right. You can't really trace these things in a straight line. Working with Tony Kushner and doing the play at BAM, but we only ran 2 weeks at BAM. All of this sort of adds up. But Blasted was really a thing all on its own. I had done the year before, I had done a little workshop in the basement of Soho Rep, which is the dressing rooms. It was nothing. It wasn't open to the public. It was a week-long workshop of a David Ajmi play, and it was a great part. And I had a lot of fun. But I'm not sure I even got paid. I'm not sure. But Sarah Benson came to see it because she was running Soho Rep, and so she became familiar with me because of that. And then sometime later, Marin Ireland was doing another workshop with Sarah, and Marin said to Sarah Benson, you should do Blasted. And Sarah said, I would love to do Blasted, but Simon Kane, who's the executor of Sarah Kane's estate, won't allow anyone to to do it. And she said, well, I know Simon because I did the American tour of 448 Psychosis. Let me ask him. And Simon said, well, if you get to play Kate, then I will give you permission. And then Sarah Benson said, all right, who would you feel safe doing this with since it's so brutal? And Marin said, Reed. So, and we had known each other because we had worked together on developing a play by a semi-famous playwright. We had worked on it for a year and a half, really helping her write the play. And then we both got dumped from it. And I hated the play and didn't want to do the play. But Marin was the lead of the play, and she had done the world premiere of it in Boston and then got dumped when it came to New York. They wouldn't even see her. So she was devastated. And so the summer of 2007, we met weekly, I would say, to sort of calm her down and debrief and, you know, talk her through that thing. And so we got really close that summer. And so when this Blasted thing came up, she said, I would be safe doing the play with Reed. And I didn't know anything about Sarah Kane or Blasted. And it was going to be a 3-week run for, I think, $270 a week. And I read the play, and it literally made me sick to my stomach. And I thought, I can't do this play. Why would I put myself through this? And then I thought, well, I would put myself through it because it scares me so much. That's why I would put myself through it. And I thought, Soho Rep is not asking me to do this as a favor to me. This is a big deal for them. They clearly think I can do it. If they think I can do it, who am I to say no? And I know a lot of guys wanted to play that part. So I was very lucky to get it. And the thing about it is that it exposed me to a whole generation of millennials who didn't know me. Sam Gold and Annie Baker, I'm sure, became aware of me from Blasted. You know, that there wouldn't have been anything before that they would have seen me in. And of course, you know, that led to Circle Mirror and Uncle Vanya and Picnic and great jobs.
And so from there, how did Humans come about?
Humans came about in October of 2013. Sam Gold called me up and said, I have this very important reading tomorrow for the Roundabout, and I've lost an actor. Would you please consider stepping in? And I said, sure, Sam, of course. He said, just so you know, you're not right for it. But you know, you'd really be doing me a favor. And I said, okay, send it to me. And he did. And I read it, and it was a janitor from Scranton. I thought, I'm not right for this. Of course I'm not right for this. There's no way in the world people would believe me as a janitor from Scranton. I thought a janitor from Scranton looked like Fred Flintstone. So I went and did the reading the next day. And, you know, that's a tough play to do a reading of because it's 2 floors and multiple conversations overlapping. And we were at music stands and we rehearsed it, you know, for an hour before we did it. I gave it my best shot. I thought I did my best janitor from Scranton. But, you know, then I didn't hear anything for a year. And I think I knew that there was a workshop of it at Vassar with David Morse playing my part. And then a year after we did that reading, I saw on Playbill, they made an announcement that the Humans was going to be opening the Roundabout season a year from then. You know, it was yet another year. It was going to be September of 2015 now. And Joe Mantello was now going to be directing. And I had just done Casa Valentina with Joe. And so I ran into the playwright at an opening night, right like the next day after that that Playbill article. And I said, oh, congratulations, they're going to do your play. That's fantastic. Joe is perfect for it. I didn't ask what happened to Sam. I said, Joe is going to give it such a beautiful production. It's probably going to be David Morse. And he said, no, it's not going to be David Morse. He was very opaque and cryptic and, revealed nothing. And I said, oh, well, I said, just so you know, I would really love to play that part. He just smiled. And then I said, well, listen, great luck. I can't wait to see it. I'm sure it's going to be beautiful, and enjoy the play tonight. And then about 2 weeks later, I got an email from him saying, we're going to offer you the role. Ooh. I couldn't believe it. I don't know how many movie stars they've gone through, but I'm glad they all turned it down. And of course, it was a beautiful, miraculous experience. It was, having watched colleagues and peers' plays move to Broadway and win awards. It turned out to be my turn to be in the play that moved to Broadway and won awards.
Goosebumps and some tearage in my eyes.
Oh,
I mean,
no, it was a beautiful.
I saw it. I think I saw it 3 times.
Yeah, you saw it off Broadway, and then I know you saw it. I know you saw it a couple times on Broadway. So
yeah, then I saw it closing night. I think.
Did you?
I think I came closing night because I remember taking pictures of it. I believe.
Yeah.
And then one time in the beginning of the run. But I mean, again, that was one of those where it was just so simple, but so from the get-go you were connected to it. And ultimately,
yeah, I give Joe complete credit for that. He is a brilliant director, and he's got an incredible eye, and he misses nothing. So it was hard work, but it was always thrilling.
And when you say that someone's brilliant like that, like in what way does it manifest itself? Is it in a sentence? Is it in a mood they create in the room? What is it that does that for you? Is there something you can point to tangibly?
Well, I think he cast it really well, and of course that's a huge part of it. But I think he's tough. But you're in great hands. That's the thing. So, and he has such great taste, so that when he comes down on you hard about something, it can be painful, but he's right. And you have to get your feelings out of the way. Not always. Sometimes it's but it can be like that. But I think you just know that he's right, and you see him be right with the other people when you're rehearsing a scene and somebody does something, you're like, ooh, that wasn't very good, and then you go on and the scene goes on and you forget about it, and then it notes. He absolutely articulates what you saw that person do and what was not right about it and what it needs to be. So you figure if he's that perceptive and right about that person, I have to assume he's right about me too. And his whole style of directing sort of lines up with my feelings about acting, in that he really wants his direction to disappear. He doesn't want anyone to come out of the theater saying, and it was directed so beautifully, and not every director feels that way. A lot of directors are showing off, and they want you to see their stamp all over the goddamn thing. And Joe hates that. really wants it to feel completely lived in, and he's meticulous and very detail oriented. So it can be really thrilling to be directed by him.
And that role brought you a Tony.
To have, yes.
And what was that like, that experience that night, being there and hearing your name called?
It was pretty great, I have to say. I had been nominated before for Casa Valentina, also directed by Joe. And I would say the difference between that award season, Tony season, where I didn't feel really taken care of. I was really sort of on my own, and I had to find my own tucks and all that kind of stuff, versus going through award season with Scott Rudin driving the bus when suddenly Anna Wintour is dressing me, and all that kind of stuff. It was a very different experience. I think I was pretty aware the first time that I was not going to win, but it's challenging because you go through the events and the panels and the this, that, and the other thing, and there's so much noise, and there's so much like, well, you're going to win, or you should win, or you'll see some stupid thing online. Someone would say Reed Birney should win, and then the next 5 posts are like, that guy's not gonna win. I mean, that's a cautionary tale about reading the chat rooms. But the second time with the Humans, there seemed to be a sort of prevailing feeling that I had a very good shot at it. Though I showed up and had the worst seat at the Beacon Theater. I was on the aisle next to the exit, and Michael Shannon is sitting dead center, and the kid from the British play was dead center. I was like, oh, because the other sort of thing you suss out when the Radio City Music Hall for the first time was when you show up, how close they put you to the stage is what they think your odds are. And I was pretty far back, and Mark Rylance was in aisle 2, seat 2. And so when I showed up at the Beacon the second time and I had that terrible seat, I thought, oh, maybe the Tony Awards know something I don't know. And that was, that gave me a little hiccup there. But, I remember when they called my name really thinking, all right, Reed, this could be it. This could be the one time you're up on one of these stages. Really take it in, take it in. Don't go unconscious here like we often do. So I have a very, very vivid memory of standing on the stage and seeing that packed theater. I mean, I don't know what it would have been like to stand on the stage of Radio City Music Hall with its 6,000 seats. But it was pretty thrilling. And I loved being able to sort of acknowledge the good and the bad of my career. I thought I have a responsibility. I don't want to get up and pretend that it's all been easy, because it wasn't. And at the same time, I didn't want to be like, well, it's about time. I didn't want to be that guy. So I really wanted to acknowledge my peers and my colleagues and how great that has always been throughout the oftentimes nightmare of the career. To have our dressing room during Homebody Cobble I remember that so much more than anything that happened on stage.
And that night, I mean, remind me of who you were up against that night.
I'm all right. If I can remember myself, I was up against the boy who played Rupert. I can't remember his last name. I feel so terrible. He was in the King Charles play. Played Prince Harry, I think. And then Michael Fannon, with whom I had worked several times, and Bill Camp, who was in Homebody with us, and then David Furr, who was in Noises Off, who was hilarious in Noises Off. So it was interesting to be up against, guys I'd worked with. Neither of them were terribly generous afterwards. They both snubbed me pretty bad at the Plaza Hotel.
Really?
Yeah.
Michael and Camp?
Yeah.
Oh.
Disappointing.
But was it a night that you like? I mean, do they give you the Tony and you're holding it that night throughout the night?
Yeah, you get the Tony, and then you go off stage, you say your words, and then you go off stage, and there's a press attaché there who took me down to the JCC across the street on Amsterdam Avenue. And I remember as I was walking outside, it was a lovely June night, I said, "Is this really happening?" I remember saying that to him. And then you go and you get your picture taken and you have some interviews. How do you feel? And how do you, blah, blah, blah. And that's 15, 20 minutes. And then you go back and sit down in your chair. And I have my Tony with me, and it was under my seat. And then when it's over, I think you have the option of turning it back in that night or taking it with you to the party. And I thought, well, I'm taking this bad boy with me. So, the party was really fun. We went to the Plaza first, and that's where I got snubbed by my pals. And then afterwards, there was an after party. I can't even remember the name of the hotel now. It wasn't the Carlisle. Usually, it's at the Carlisle, but this year it was at this enormous, very fancy hotel, and it was really fun. And I stayed very late, and I was one of the last people to leave, and I think the sun was coming up when I left. And I took my Tony home, and Connie and the kids had gone home right after the thing. We lived 10 blocks from the Beacon, so they just walked on home. And the next day I got up and did laundry. And then you give the Tony back to them, and they engrave it, and that takes about 2 weeks, I guess. And then they send it back to the theater, and you get it in a nice box, and then it's yours.
One thing you mentioned earlier, that in Gemini, you and the cast were not prepared for a long run. You hadn't had that experience yet. But Humans was a long run.
Yes.
So what changed, and what is it? What would you tell someone about a long run, which is becomes a marathon as opposed to like a 60-show sprint kind of?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is the difference between the actors. We had talented people in Gemini, but they didn't have literally the experience of being in the long run. And so they, and then, whatever psychological stuff was going on there was a lot of competition amongst the cast for recognition. So, that came into play. And since nobody was in charge, it got out of shape. With the Humans, it was an older group of people, more experienced, nicer people. We really had a wonderful feeling of family. And the thing that impressed me is that one of the things that impressed me was as we, got into show 100, 200, 300, 400, oftentimes in even a short run, people get bored, and then they start, playing tricks on stage. They'll hide notes in drawers, or they'll cross their eyes when they're upstage, or they'll mutter something underneath their breath. All those hijinks that happen. And nobody did any of that. Not once in the 3 years that we did the show, in all the places we did it. Everybody was fully committed, every single show. And that's just the seriousness of who those people are. And they, people had off nights, or they were sick, or they had a cold, or they were tired, or, and so there was a variance in perhaps the quality of the show that only we could see. But, everybody was fully present for all 666 shows, I think, that we ended up doing. So that was a huge thing, to be in a long run where, you didn't lose your mind that way. I mean, we lost our minds off stage. You would come off, a year in and say, I don't know, I just don't know. But at the same time, I think we all realized how lucky we were with the play and the journey it had taken and the caliber of the cast. I think we all, really were aware and very, very grateful.
And since Humans, you've seem to be working now steadily doing, picking and choosing what you get to do.
Well, it may look that way. It doesn't really feel that way. It's not like I'm getting all kinds of offers and I'm saying, yes, I'll do that. No, over my dead body. I did 1984, and I did Man from Nebraska after The Humans. I did those two plays. And then last summer, I did a beautiful play called Chester Bailey with my son, a two-hander with my son. That was gorgeous, and he was spectacular and heartbreaking, and he totally mopped up the floor with me. And it's been optioned for New York, and we were meant to do it again this summer at Barrington Stage in Pittsfield, but the plague has canceled that, so it's been pushed to 2021, and I think that will be my last play. I'm not loving doing plays, and The Humans ended badly, as you know, and broke my heart. And so I really am going to really focus now on the film and TV. And I've been lucky because I've gotten some really wonderful parts in film and TV.
Now, when you say, it'll be your last play, is it because the business part of it? Because you love the backstage and the environs of, being in a play, if I'm not mistaken.
I did, but towards the end of The Humans in London, and then even in Man from Nebraska and in 1984, I found myself on stage with the pretty consistent thought, I don't like this anymore. And it's really hard work. I know it doesn't make sense. We work 2 hours a day, and but it's quite grueling in a long run. It's grueling, and it can be a little soul crushing. And I think when The Humans ended badly, I thought, I don't want this. I don't want to get close to people like this again and have my heart broken. And I don't really love being on stage. I'm sort of not interested anymore in people looking at me. I'm a little over that.
When you say it ended badly, can you remind me? I don't quite remember exactly.
I found out on the street that I was not cast in the movie. And that's fine. I'm in very good company of people who have not been able to recreate their stage roles. Fine. It was handled very, very badly. And it turns out that half the cast knew that I wasn't cast in the movie and had chosen not to tell me. So I just thought, why? I thought we were family, and I thought we had each other's backs. We had all sworn to love each other till the day we died. And what is this deciding it's best for me not to tell me? Something like that I get to go through the humiliation of finding out on the street. So I felt and still feel incredibly betrayed by these beloved castmates, and I just don't want to go through that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you said you want to focus on, I guess, film and television. In your dream world, what would your life look like in a dream world? Is it being on an hour long something? Is it a movie or two a year? What if you could write your own ticket, for the next chapter of your career?
I think all of that. I think I really, at this point, I just want to play wonderful parts with wonderful people. I did a movie in November in Sun Valley, Idaho, of all places. Do you know who Fran Kranz is?
Familiar.
He's an actor. He's a great actor, young guy, 34, 8, something like that. But he wrote a movie called Mass about two couples. Ann Dowd and I are married. Ann Dowd from Handmaid's Tale. And Martha Plimpton and Jason Isaacs are the other couple. Our son shot their son in a school shooting 6 years earlier. And they have asked to meet with us for closure. And the entire movie, I would say 99% of the movie, is the four of us sitting at a table. And it was one of the most thrilling acting experiences I've ever had. And I hear it's fantastic. So, more of that, please. I'm on this Apple series now called Home Before Dark, which you can watch for free during the plague. And it's wonderful. A little girl from Florida Project, Brooklyn Prince, is the star. And you should watch it. Your girls would love it. And I play her grandfather with Alzheimer's. And my first Alzheimer's part, since we filmed it a year ago, I played 3. So clearly that's where I'm headed. But I had a wonderful time, and we were in the middle of shooting season 2 when the plug was pulled and we all had to come home. So I have that to look forward to getting to go back to Vancouver and finish that up. I did this wonderful Netflix movie called Lost Girls with Amy Ryan and Gabriel Byrne that's on now. I had a wonderful time doing that, playing a bad guy. And I did a movie that was at Sundance this year. I went to Sundance for the first time with 2 movies called The 40-Year-Old Version, about a 40-year-old black lady playwright who decides to reinvent herself at 40 as a hip-hop artist. And I play her incredibly creepy nemesis, who's a sort of a producer of an off-Broadway theater. We know any number of them. And so I had a little revenge fantasy getting to play that. Really, really fun. And that came out of the blue. It was an offer out of the blue. And I thought, there's no money, but it shoots in New York, and why the hell not? It's a really fun part. And it ended up going to Sundance, and she won Best Director prize. So you never know.
when I was talking to Fred Weller today, and I was asking him, because one of the things I like to talk to people about is, what does your dream world look like? You know, for him, he wanted to be, and I said, do you want to be a fake doctor? Do you want to be a fake, lawyer on TV? And he's like, yeah, I want to be a lawyer because both my parents were lawyers. Do you think of it in terms of like, I want to be a fake this, or it's just a part? It doesn't matter to you.
It's a part. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, at this point, I've been a fake everything. I've done pretty much everything once. Some of it more than once. That high maintenance I did last year, that was so much fun. Did you see that?
Yeah, you were great in it. But when you say the part, Reed, are you talking about the scene and the dialogue and the words you get to say? Is that what makes it the part?
Just, who the guy is. What's the story he's telling? What's his contribution to the tale? And, do I get to do interesting things? Is there a big enough meal to have some fun with? If I'm following the paradigm of tell the truth in the most interesting way, is there stuff there that can be explored in interesting ways? Bringing people to life. That's what's really interesting to me. Creating new human beings.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because I didn't even know you and your son were in a play, but this is what I'm talking about. This is how I find out that you were in a play with your son, and I've known him since Homebody. When he was like literally 5 or 6.
Yes, that's right.
But But in 2021, I have something to look forward to, and please let me know about it when it happens.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So I can come many times.
He's a fantastic actor.
That's wonderful. And your daughter is too, and your wife.
My daughter was on Blacklist tonight, and
wow.
I missed it because I was taking a phone call, but apparently she was amazing. She's a really wonderful actor too. Yeah. I'm very lucky.
Who are, if you had to think of a handful of people you have acted opposite where you were like, whoa, I am running with wolves, this person is good. Who comes to mind for you?
I thought Bill Camp was pretty great in Homebody.
Yeah.
I love doing those scenes with him. I love doing them with Tracy at Steppenwolf when we did the play, when that first version. Mayor Winningham. I love acting with Mayor Winningham. I've done that a couple of times. I'm really stumped.
Were you the one who told me the story about the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman seeing him standing outside of Capote looking at the marquee?
No.
I thought it was you that told me the story where he was standing outside the marquee, somebody came up to him, and they said, wow, Phil, look at this, your movie's playing on the big screen, and you won an Oscar. It must be amazing. And he just took a puff of a cigarette and said, I thought this would finally make me happy.
Yeah, that's what I mean about, the actor's motivation trying to fill the unfillable hole. I think Phil Hoffman was a great actor. I don't think he liked being an actor very much. He didn't seem to have very much joy in his acting. It seemed painful. And I don't think it should be painful. I don't think that's what it's supposed to be. I think even when you're playing Medea, there's a joy in performance that is essential. And I cling very strongly to that. If it's not fun, then why the hell put yourself through this? It's a hideous business. When it's good, it's bad. And so if the work itself isn't fun and joyful, there's no reason to be doing it. Why punish yourself like that?
But now, is that different than being nervous or excited? It's okay to be nervous and excited and feel, good fear, right?
Oh, I think fear on stage is deadly. I think you cannot be a good actor and be fearful. I think you can be as scared as you want in the dressing room. But when you walk out on stage, you cannot be fearful. And, you read about people who, suffered from, Olivier had these terrible bouts of stage fright and I think had to stop acting on stage because of it. I don't know what that was about, but I don't think you can be scared and be a great actor. And yeah, I get nervous. Sure, I get nervous.
Do you ever worry about going up on lines? Has that ever happened, or is that not even something that you even think about? Or that always
I have a handful of times gotten to a line and not known what it was, and then it was there. I've never dried where I didn't know what was next. I don't think I have. Where somebody had to cover for me or any of that. I've missed entrances. I've missed an entrance or two along the way, sitting in the dressing room. That's a terrible feeling. But I will say I was doing a play at Actors Theater of Louisville, and the dressing rooms were like 3 floors below the stage. And I had a big chunk of time off stage, and I was, daydreaming down there. I was there by myself. Everybody else was on stage. And I heard my cue over the monitor and, bolted up the stairs 4 at a time and raced out on stage. And I will say that the scene that I raced out on stage to do was never better than that time I missed my cue, because I was so out of my head and so just, viscerally living that any emotion I needed was completely present when I bounded on stage out of breath. I was younger then.
Now, you're doing a play reading, you said Sunday, so you're still doing plays and play reading. I'm doing
readings, just sort of for fun and to sort of help out. People get their plays started, and, I love working on new plays. But I say to everybody up front, I'm not able to commit to a production of this. And I've turned plays down because I can't get past the idea of the meet and greet, standing in a circle. Hi, I'm Reed. I'm playing Mr. Jones. It's like, oh my God! And then you got to show up the next day and rehearse the goddamn thing, and then do all that equity paperwork, and then you got to do the play. Oh no, madness!
So even if it was a straight offer for a Broadway play right now, I mean,
if
is there
somebody
nothing?
Called me up and said, "We want you to play Willie Loman on Broadway, your name above the title," I really would struggle. That's fortunately not going to happen because Nathan Lane is doing Willie Loman next year, and by the next time Death of a Salesman comes around, I'll be too old. It's been 8 years since. 8 years? No, it's been longer than. I think Phil Hoffman's was 2002 or 4. So it's been 16 years. Yeah, in another 16 years, I'll be way too old to play it. So my time for Willie Loman is come and gone. And honestly, I feel like The Humans was my Willie Loman, honestly. Mm-hmm. And it was a new play, and I didn't have fingerprints all over it. So I'd much rather do that anyway.
But are there plays like that and roles like that you always like, I wanted to do this role?
I had, 5 or 10 dream roles when I was a young man. Edmund in Long Day's Journey, and I don't know what else. I never got to play a single one. And I never saw myself as old, so I never came up with any older ones. I remember being in college, and there was a discussion about Uncle Vanya, and I was like, oh, there's nothing for me in that. Cut to, one of my most exciting jobs ever was Uncle Vanya, seemingly a role I was born to play. Somebody who's full of rage about how their life turned out.
You know, it's amazing. I mean, look, I've known you for a long time, but this is like a rare opportunity to be able to just, you know, sit at the foot of the master. And you still teach, right? Is that something you still want to do?
Well, I love teaching. I just haven't had time to commit to a 10-week session. So I haven't been able to do that, but I really do like it, and I would like to do it again at some point. If I could do a 2-day master class here or there, you know, in the meantime, I would like that a lot.
And I mean, what would you say? I mean, in your classes, it's essentially monologues and scenes.
Yeah.
And what would you say
based on what I did as a student?
And the basis of your teachers, what you learned from your teachers?
Yes. Tell the truth in the most interesting way possible. But here's the thing that's interesting to me about good acting. When, as a teacher, when you're seeing students do scenes and it's not working, it's easy to sort of pinpoint, you know, you were tense or you were rushing or you were not listening or whatever, you know, to help them. But when it's good, it's very hard to say why it's good because the magic happens. And then suddenly you're just in this world. They've cast a spell. And when it's over, you're like, yeah, that was it. I don't know what else to tell you other than I was persuaded. And I find it, especially in scene class, I find it very, very moving to see the kids get it. And sometimes they don't even know why. It just clicks, and they're out of their heads, and they're pretending really well. They're in the sandbox and fully engaged. And my hope is, you know, when I say that's it, often I'm crying when I say it, that they are able to then say, I can recognize what that felt like. And maybe this felt different than the last time I did it, when it didn't work. So, you know, I think class is a really important thing for so many reasons. But you know, if you can have a taste of what that is, it really takes you a long way.
Would you ever do a solo show of stories from, you know, having done this work, you know, being up there by yourself for, you know, an hour and 15?
I mean, telling my story?
Yeah, I mean, you've got like, you know, you'd have to cut it down to an hour and 15 of the amazing stories you have, you know, and the friends, and they would want to see it.
I don't
ever considered?
I don't think so. I don't think it's that interesting. I mean, I think it's interesting to us, you know, in the business who know what I'm talking about, but I can't see a room full of people unless, you know, they wanted to know what I really thought of this movie star or that movie star, which I, you know, also have been known to go on about. But I don't really have much interest in a solo show, one-man show, because as I say, at this point I'm so much more interested in the dressing room. That's if I were going to do another play. But, you know, I'm much more interested in the camaraderie of the dressing room than that. I've done so many bad plays, but I often think of them fondly because I had such a good time in the dressing room.
You know, part of this conversation or podcast is also, is there other people can you hook me up with, like, you know, Bill Camp, or can you hook me up with Michael Shannon? Who's someone maybe that you can refer me to who's like, hey, I talked to him, it seemed all right? What are some names you could throw at me?
Well, I think you need to talk to Jeremy Byler.
Yes,
sure.
Yeah.
You can talk to your friend Arian Moyet.
Yeah.
He's doing very, very well. He's very successful. And I'm sure he would be happy to have a conversation with you. I wouldn't know who else
You can think about it. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit. Like, I'm not like seriously putting you on the spot, but
yeah,
if you think of
you know how to get in touch with Michael Shannon and Bill Camp. You can totally get in touch with them.
Well, Michael,
all by
Bill,
yourself.
I don't know. I can get in touch. Michael, I have his cell phone, but I guess Bill Camp I could track down.
Sure.
Let me ask you. I love that story you told me, and only I'm bringing it because I think I've taken so much of your time, but it's just been. I mean, I feel. I think the world as a human, as an actor, I mean, it's just like I feel profoundly lucky that whatever I did led me to the Steppenwolf and into that dressing room with you to basically, watch a masterclass. But, again, this is brought to you by Fresca, and it's your mom's favorite drink. And I love that story you told me about Julie Andrews and talking to your mother the night before. I love that story.
Want me to tell that story?
Yes, please.
Well, Julie Andrews was my mother's favorite. And the only time she ever saw her live was she saw her in The Boyfriend, Julie Andrews' Broadway debut, when she was pregnant with me. And one of the great regrets of her life was that she didn't see My Fair Lady. So anyhow, when Julie Andrews, burst on the scene with Mary Poppins and Sound of Music, and we, the family was all about it. Every television special and every album, and oh my God, it was all about Julie Andrews. So, and I love Julie Andrews. Who didn't love Julie Andrews? So I'm in New York for 100 million years, and in this acting class with Gene Lasco comes a wonderful guy named Steve Hamilton, who is engaged to Julie Andrews' daughter, Emma. And so through Steve, I meet Emma, and we become sort of the Three Musketeers. We're spending a lot of time together. And I meet Julie. I do a play with Steve, and Julie comes, and, I meet her, and that's thrilling. And and we traveled together, Steve and Emma and I. We went to London one time. It's great. They were great times, all pre-children and pre-Connie for me. And so in the Christmas of 90, our family is all together for the very first time in 16 years. They're all 5 kids, and we have a ball. And afterwards, I go back to New York, and Emma calls me up and says, hey, would you like to come to Switzerland and go skiing for 10 days with Steve and me? Mom will be here. Everybody's here now for Christmas, but Mom and they had Blake and Julie had adopted 2 Cambodian children, two girls, and she said one of them will be there, but everybody else will be gone. And I said, oh well, I would love to come, but I can't afford to fly to Switzerland. Okay, so I hang up with Emma and I call home, and I said call home to talk to Mom and Dad about it and thank them for Christmas. And I said, hey, get a load of this. I just got invited to go to Switzerland with Julie Andrews. And Mom said, well, what did you say? And I said, we can't afford it. I can't afford it. And she said, we'll pay. We'll call you right back. And so 10 minutes later, they called back and she said, Dad's going to borrow some money so you can go. And I said, this is insane. And Dad got on the phone and he said, no, it's just a cash flow thing. It's going to be fine. So off I go to Switzerland to go skiing with Emma and Steve and Julie. And we had a great time. Julie was very nice to me. She was friendly, but she was friendly like I was Emma's friend. I mean, honestly, why would she? Who the hell was I? But, over the course of the 10 days, we all got very friendly and nice. But Julie and Amy were having Amy was 16 and, having terrible time with her mother like a lot of 16-year-olds. And the last night we were there, we were out to dinner, and Amy and Julie had a terrible time at dinner. And it was awkward. And when we got back, as we were about to go to bed, Emma said, I hope this helps you appreciate your family. And I said, you know what, it kind of does. So I fly home the next day, and it's exhausting. I get home about 4 p.m. on a Friday. And I'm really beat. And I think, should I call home? I'll call tomorrow. I'll call now. So I called, and Mom picked up the phone. She said, what's Julie Andrews like? And I said, she's fantastic, Mom. It was really great. But I have to tell you that being with Julie Andrews for 10 days really made me appreciate you. And my mother died that night. She went to bed and didn't wake up. And that was the last conversation I ever had with my mother. So the idea that Julie Andrews was this seminal figure in our family, and that she would play so heavily into my leave-taking of my mother, and that I would get a sympathy card from Julie Andrews about my mother a week later. I mean, if you saw it in a movie, you'd say it was too much. It's a true story.
I mean, if you ask me, Reed, you've had a wonderful life.
I have. I really have.
A magical, wonderful life.
Very, very, very blessed. And I will say, when I took that trip around the world in '86, and I was on my own the whole year, I sort of I made friends along the way, and we traveled for a couple of days, but I was really by myself. And I had a lot of adventures, sort of good and bad. But I will say not once in that 365 days did I ever feel not taken care of. I felt totally that the universe had my back. And I often have to remind myself, if the universe had my back then, why would it not have my back now? So whatever I'm going through, whatever frustrating or despair-making thing I'm going through, I really have to remind myself that I'm right where I'm supposed to be. When I was going through that award season for the Humans, and it was all looking good for me and going my way, I had a moment where I thought, oh my God, thank God I didn't get famous in my 20s. I can barely handle this now. And I was supposed to win. What if I were 26 and nominated for an Oscar like people had said I was going to be for Four Friends? I would have killed myself. I never would have survived it. These are the unknowables, but I think there's a good chance it would have been way too much for me at 26 to go through that. So I have had a wonderful life, and I've had a wonderful career, and I occasionally will regret that I didn't get to play some of the parts I wanted to play as a young man, or get to paint on a bigger canvas when I was younger. But I'm doing just fine now. And I'll tell you that Paul Newman story that I know I've told you. But any hope of fame or immortality. I did a play with Joanne Woodward in 1982. I did Hay Fever with her. It was another glorious, glorious summer. And so I got friendly with Paul and Joanne and stayed friendly for quite a few years afterwards. And I was at their New York City apartment one time in the early 80s, I would say 84, 5 maybe. And in the powder room downstairs, they had a duplex, of course. there was a framed letter. Do you remember the story, Ali? There was a framed letter that said, "Dear Mr. Newman, last night my girlfriend made me dinner, and we had spaghetti, and it was so delicious. And she tells me it's your spaghetti sauce. She also tells me you've made some movies. Could you tell me what some of them are?"
Wow.
So, I mean, that was a huge moment for me. Paul Newman was still a huge movie star in 1984, 85. I think he won the Oscar for Color of Money that year. And some schmuck had never heard of him, except for his spaghetti sauce. So I thought, you know what, Reed? Any dream you may have of being an international celebrity, forget about it.
Wow. I mean, you know, I can't help it because I am a storyteller, you know, and I love stories and whatnot. I mean, to me, there's the story of you having decided, like, you're not doing any more plays. You're on stage. You've been given half hour, and you are just going through the stories of your life. And the play ends with places, and you say, "Thank you, places," and then it's you going out on stage, and that's the end of your solo show.
And what was the name of that play? You had come up with the name for that play.
My Triumphant Rise to the Middle?
Yes.
Or read Birney, A Life in Theater Thus Far.
No, I think my rise to the middle.
My Triumphant Rise to the Middle. I remember when
be a superstar.
That's right. He was right. That guy was right. I forgot his name, but he was right.
Tony Yalda.
Yeah, Tony Yalda. He said to you, somebody's going to be a superstar, and he was right. He just didn't tell you when, though. I remember Paul Newman came to Homebody Combo at BAM, and I regretted not getting a picture with him, but at that point he seemed older and frail. I didn't want to bother him. But
no, he was there. I think he was Maggie's godfather, so he was there to see Maggie.
Right.
You know.
But he was backstage, and I just was like, oh, my God, Paul Newman,
sure.
Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah, HUD. Sure.
HUD, everything. You just want to take a picture to remember it. I'm like, for what? But, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I try not to beat myself up because you can't get every picture like that.
No, and it's better you didn't. He would have probably given you a picture, but it would have been an irritation.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Reed, thank you for being on. Is this a bad time to talk? AKA, I'm here to listen.
I'm here to listen.
I'm here to listen.
And you did very well.
I
listened
thank you,
very
Reed.
well. Yeah.
I want to listen to a level where it makes people. And thank you, man. And so, I'll send you a copy of this for your kids to have.
Okay.
I hope it recorded. I really sincerely do. And I hope to see you. Well, I mean, Reed, think of it more of like, I don't know, a therapy session or just a conversation. It's just two people talking. You're in the Catskills. Reed, you know what? I'll come to you for a favor someday. Let's leave it at that. Thank you, Reed, for being a phenomenal actor, human being, person. I feel so lucky to know you.
We were talking tonight at dinner. I mean, now that UCB is closed, that's got to be good news for the Pit.
Well, I mean, not really. You know, it was a theater that I was a founding member of. You know, you don't like to see anybody, you know, go out.
Yeah.
I don't know what the future is for the Pit either. So, you know, I don't. It's not like when I heard about it, I wasn't happy. I was like, uh-oh, and I felt bad. And, you know, it brought back all these amazing memories for myself of, you know, being a founding member and coming to New York in 99 to write for Saturday Night Live and then doing ASCAT every Sunday and the memories. And so, you know, and I'm going through it myself with Four Spaces and Landlords, and I don't know what the future holds. So, you know, I've got to remain humble and hungry. And like I said, Broadway's Broadway because of a lot of theaters, not because there's one theater. So, you know, UCB, I was happy to have more people doing this because it, you know, brought attention to the world of improvisational comedy and sketch comedy.
Right.
So I don't know, like.
And, but something like this, talking to people, is born out of the virus of like going crazy and being like, you know what? I don't know when I'm going to be able to talk to Reed in a room, set up a meeting,
Right.
Can I do a podcast? And so I said, I found this app for my phone, and I said, you know what, let me just call people, and the quality is going to sound like you're talking to someone on a phone, right?
Right.
But for whatever kid who's never going to get a chance to meet Reed Birney, who saw him, wherever they are in the world, that young Reed Birney out there, maybe they will get something, because I certainly got something out of it. So
Wow.
I'm going through like, a real, like, what am I going to do now? I spent 18 years building bricks and mortar spaces. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years, and now I'm like, uh-oh. And, I've been unemployed since, early March.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is going to be the next chapter of my life if I can't salvage these spaces and places.
Right. Right.
So I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm trying to grow through it and not go through it. And I don't think I would have called you or the other people I've spoken to and said, hey, would you be willing to talk to me on the phone for whatever this is worth and wherever it gets posted?
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, and like I said, this is basically a phone call. You can call it a podcast or whatever, but it's a phone call talking to a friend and learning. Yeah. And even if I did Fred Weller this afternoon, and then, we had some glitches, but he texted me later. He said, regardless of what happens, hey, man, I had a great time talking to you. I said, yeah. Me too, man. Me too. So
he's a good guy.
Yeah, he is. And he was the best man at my wedding. And, he's just he's a good guy.
What's going on with him?
Well, I mean, he's holed up in Connecticut right now, and he's, itching to act. But again, you don't know what it's going to look like in the theater world. Social distancing.
No, I think it's going to be a long, long time till anybody goes to a theater.
Yeah,
honestly.
So I don't know what the future holds for live theater and public spaces, and unfortunately, or fortunately, that's what I've been drawn to. I mean, essentially, I run public houses.
Right.
And, in exchange, I get to do something here and there and teach a class and do a show, and then here and there I get to do something on the side. But I mean, I feel grateful too. I just got to figure out, what the future holds. But time will tell.
Right.
But Reedy, I thank you again for your time.
Lots of love, Ali.
Best to your family.
Thank you.
Love you.
You too.
With all my heart.
You too. All right. I'll
Sweet
see you when
dreams.
this is over.
Okay. Good night, Fred.
Bye-bye.
That was Reed Birney. I feel so lucky that I got a chance to talk to him. I've known Reed Birney since Homebody Cabo, Steppenwolf. We were dressing room mates, and I got a chance to basically watch him every night act or not act, because, it's kind of amazing what he does, because you can't catch him acting because he's just being truthful on stage. And we talked for almost 2 hours, so I don't know who's listening to this, but if you are still listening, thank you for listening, and please check out the Pit's website, thepit-nyc.com. Check out the online classes, and please come back when we open up again in the IRL, in the real world. Fresca, yeah, I enjoy Fresca. I'm not going to lie to you. I enjoy lentils right now. I enjoy Wonderful. I think they're called shelled pistachios, roasted and salted. I enjoy Pop Wonderful. These are some of the things that I've been into, some of my favorite things, in the words of Julie Andrews. These are some of my favorite things. So, sweet dreams, or good morning, or good afternoon, or hello. But I hope this finds you and yours healthy. And if you're not healthy, I hope you get healthy. And once you get healthy, I hope you stay healthy and appreciate your health and have gratitude and love around it. All right. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. And so long for now.
Thanks for listening to Global Comedy Studios. Is this a bad time to talk? Stay tuned for more.